Today on Visual Engineering Everyday, we'll be talking about suspension dampers. I will talk about what they are, why they are needed, and how they work. What are suspension dampers? Suspension dampers are a hydraulic device that controls the way a spring will rebound. The ones I will talk about during this presentation are used in the automotive industry. These are going to be used because it's the damper that most people will have the most experience with and are easier to relate to. So when I'm talking about the different uses, it'll be easier to understand where I'm coming from. What do suspension dampers do? Like I mentioned in the previous slide, they control the behavior of the spring that they are attached to. Specifically, they only let the spring expand and contract at a certain rate. With this control, it makes the suspension system more usable and accurate. You're probably wondering, why should you even care about suspension dampers? Well, you should care about them because they're used in every car in the entire world. And if it wasn't for the dampers in your car, it would be bouncy, uncontrollable, and unsafe. At the high speeds cars can reach today, many people would be hurt or end up being killed if the dampers are not included in the suspension system. Also, with more knowledge on how the suspension works, you'll be able to know when something's wrong and what needs to be fixed. Why are suspension dampers needed? Well, like I talked about before, they are needed to make sure your car is safe. When I was talking about the bouncing earlier, there are some graphs that show what I was talking about. The graph on the left is a spring without a damper, and as you can see, it is bouncing and would not make for a very good ride. On the other hand, the overdamp system takes too long for the spring to come back to its needed length, and this is not good either for the suspension. What is wanted is the critically damped system on the right, and this is accomplished with the correct design. Here you can see the different parts of the suspension damper. Overall, there are just two main parts when it comes to the design of a damper. There's the piston at the bottom, the smaller shaft, and there's the chamber, which houses the oil that the piston is forced through when it's moved by an impact. Other than that, you can see in this diagram, there's not a whole lot. There's like different parts on the piston, which are smaller and more detailed than just is needed to understand the basic operation. And then there's the top floating piston and the gas under pressure, which is used to adjust the damper to fit what is needed for each car. How do dampers work? Like I mentioned in the previous slide, it all comes down to the oil, the piston, and the chamber. When the damper is moved, the oil must flow through the holes cut into the piston. These holes are designed specifically to make sure that the damper moves in the way it needs to. After an impact, the oil only lets the piston move at a certain rate, and this will control the spring's rebound by the friction generated by this fluid flow. Well, this concludes this episode of Visual Engineering Everyday. For the next episode, we will talk about suspension designs and how they affect cars in different ways.